Hi, Carlin here. Today we're talking about hobbies, the things we do just because, for fun, for comfort, for curiosity, for no real reason at all. In a recent episode, Elaine and I discussed the so called death of the corporate job, in which we talked about how work has lost its sense of meaning for so many people, and how many of us are starting to look elsewhere for a sense of purpose and identity. Hobbies, in a lot of ways, are where that search is landing. Hobbies are having a moment, especially among Gen Z and Millennials. Surveys show younger generations are spending more time on hobbies than ever before, and many say their hobbies are a key part of their identity. From crochet and photography to pickleball and gaming, people are re embracing leisure as a form of self expression and maybe even a quiet rebellion against burnout culture. So, in this episode, Elaine and I are asking, what is it about hobbies? We'll be talking about our own hobbies, past, present, and aspirational, and asking the bigger question, what do the hobbies we choose say about who we are or who we want to become, both on an individual and a societal level? Let's get into it. Again, I'm Carlin.
And I'm Elaine.
Welcome back to our podcast, Related. Okay, Elaine, hello. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Happy
Said no one ever.
Monday. I know. Do you get the Sunday scaries? I know it's like weird because neither of us have
Yes.
like typical in-house jobs right now, but
No, but it's like all my obligations. So first of all, I still try to like take a weekend,
yes.
acknowledging the slowdown. But
Yeah.
everybody else is busy Monday through Fridays and things are open.
Yep.
So more things get done. So
Yep.
yes, I still get the Sunday scaries.
Yeah. I get them a little bit too. More just this isn't gonna be fully my own time anymore. And
Yes.
I'm now, meetings, calls, things to do. That all
Yes.
happens Monday through Friday, it feels like.
Yes,
Yeah.
while Saturday and Sunday are sacred in a way and time for yourself.
Then time for yourself, which is a perfect segue into our topic today on hobbies. And I'm so curious, and we've talked about this before, but I think both our relationship to hobbies is slightly different. We have similar but also very different hobbies. But actually, before we even dive into that, I'm curious, like, how would you define what is a hobby? How would you define a hobby?
How would I define a hobby? I think a hobby is something that you set aside time to do. It's a structured activity, but you aren't getting paid for it.
I think I agree. I think that you don't do it for monetary, or you don't do it with the intention of making
Right.
money. It's not meant to be you don't do it for productivity's sake. You don't do it for your livelihood. You do it for like pure joy, curiosity. I've heard a couple people define it as something that you do to like learn or pick up skill, which in
Yes.
in some ways I agree with, but I do think there are some hobbies I have. Ah, I'm just trying to think. I'm thinking about if there are any hobbies I have where there isn't any inherent learning piece about it. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's true.
I would actually emphasize the learning over the joy because I think that there are times when you start, especially when you start a hobby,
Yeah.
where it is not fun
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because it's a little difficult to master,
Yeah.
and so you are kind of banking perhaps on joy coming later, but the
Yeah.
learning process is front and center at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, so which is why I didn't mention joy when I was trying to feel out my definition, but I maybe there's more of like a satisfaction aspect versus a joy aspect.
Yeah. Well, okay. Give me an example of a hobby that you've done or do for learning, not joy, or where joy is secondary.
So I would say so knitting. I take
Okay.
a lot of joy in knitting now,
Yeah.
but it took me a long time to get to the point where I'm at because every time I started, it was just so frustrating.
Mm. Okay, so why
Um,
did you decide to pick it up in the first place?
so mom first taught me how to knit when I was in middle school.
What? She didn't teach me how to knit.
Well, I asked.
Oh, okay, fair.
I like saw someone knitting, thought it was cool. Mom is not a big knitter, but she knows like the
Basically, stitches,
basic
yeah.
stitches. And so I remember her teaching me the basic stitches and kind of being like, "Go off, do your thing."
Yeah,
And that probably lasted about a week. I think at that time, like instructions on YouTube were not pretty clear. So if you
yeah,
didn't really have an experienced teacher, you were kind of on your own.
yeah,
And so it kind of died out.
yep.
And then I think I revisited it again in college, in law school, where I needed something to do with my hands.
Hmm,
And at that time, YouTube videos were getting better. They weren't
yeah,
great, but they were getting better. So there was somewhere where I could turn to for a little instruction.
yep.
And then, like about a year and a half ago, I picked it up again.
Hmm.
But this time when I went to YouTube, there are so many instruction videos. So it's like every time I wanna learn how to do something, I can just YouTube it,
Yep,
and then I learn it. And
yep,
so what started out as, like, a very frustration-labeled
yeah,
hobby has become one where I really get to embrace the learning aspect of it, and
yeah,
so it's easier to continue to do it.
yeah, and your output is really good at this point.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so you were driven to knitting more by what you knew it could become, less
Yes.
so by what it was in the beginning.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Okay, and what would you consider your other top hobbies?
Hiking, K-dramas.
That's an interesting one, which is an interesting one, which I think some people would maybe challenge in the sense that it's screen
Yes.
based.
Well, so I would say that my K-drama habit, why I would say it's a hobby versus just like lounging out in front of the
Yeah, yeah.
television is because there's often follow-up.
Mm,
I go on Reddit, I participate in the community, the K-drama
yeah,
community on Reddit. There's also other message boards online where I kind of read what people are thinking. So there's like a
yep,
discussion process that goes
yeah,
on after watching the K-drama. So I don't think you need to participate to that extent, but I think, like, setting a schedule to watch
mm,
K-dramas or, like, something that is, like, a little more structured about the
yeah, yeah,
watching, I think
yeah,
takes it from being just, like, a passive, "Oh, I'm watching this because it's on television," to a anticipation, "Oh, I get to watch my scheduled K-drama at this time."
true. And as you're talking about it, I'm reminded that you also are I feel like K-dramas are your introduction into Korean culture too, so you end up doing a lot
Yes.
of, like, research and whatnot as it relates to Korean
Yes.
culture. Yeah.
And I would say that there's also overlap with another hobby of mine, which is cooking. So
Mhm.
often when I'm watching a K-drama, there's something that they're eating, and I'm like, oh, I need to find a recipe for that so that I can cook it.
Yeah.
And like, there's a whole research process that goes along with that because we're not Korean.
Yeah.
And there's a language barrier. So there's like a whole research thing. So I would also say like cooking is another hobby of mine, but it's more fascinating when I cook other cultures.
Mm,
So because there's a research aspect of it. It's not just pulling out a recipe and cooking. It's, oh, there's this Mediterranean recipe I want to try. I wonder where it like evolved from, like what's the
yeah.
culture behind it. There's a
Yeah.
whole thing about learning.
Yep, the learning piece. And what is it about cooking that you love?
So I love the learning aspect. I I'm also a baker. You're, like, getting me into
Okay.
all my hobbies.
Yeah.
And there's, like cooking is a less stressful aspect of baking, and what I really like about baking and cooking are, like, the scientific aspects of it.
Yeah.
also the cultural aspects of it. Like, I would not say that I stay in my cultural lane when it comes to cooking or baking
Yeah.
because that's less interesting to me. If I see a recipe of like something else, I want to try it. I want to know what the fuss is about. And often I can't order it in because I'm also pescatarian, which means
Yeah.
a lot of the things that are made with meat, I'm not going to eat it unless I make
Right.
my own vegetarian version. So it's just like a method of exploration. It's a method of figuring out how I see the world.
I love it. I
So,
love it.
Karan, you've
Yes,
like
Elaine.
got into a lot of my hobbies,
I
but
mean,
what are your hobbies?
gosh, I feel like I've tried and failed, or not tried and failed. I've had a lot of hobbies that I've tried into, I think.
Hmm.
There are periods where I was really like, I remember trying guitar. I was really into piano for a lot of my childhood. Soccer was a big part of
Yep.
growing up for me, like sports, team sports.
For
But
all
yeah,
three of us, I think.
for all
Yeah.
three of us, for sure. These days, I was thinking about it as we were preparing for this episode, I think, and I was thinking also too about the motivators in terms of what I'm looking for with hobbies these days, because I think they've changed and evolved a little bit. I think as I've gotten older, as I've, been working, and whether it's in-house in a corporate role or now self-employed and consulting, I am looking kind of for an antidote of the
Mm.
hustle. I've been looking for things that really stretch my creativity, where I get to sort of really play in a way that I think adults maybe don't do as much as we should, like the older that we get.
And aren't given the leeway to
Yeah.
in a less structured way anymore.
Yeah. I think I look for hobbies that are outdoors. So, as someone who spends a lot of time staring at my computer and on screens, it's nice to have a break for that. And then I think where you and I differ, and I think we've talked about this a little bit offline, is I also look for hobbies that I can do some to a certain degree with myself, but mostly with other people. It's a community builder for me, like a
Yes, and
way
I
to
am not looking for that.
yeah, which we should go into in a second. But yeah, I think so with all that preface said, I think the biggest hobbies for me these days, you and I took a fly fishing school. We went to a women's school during the pandemic that we did together. You pretty explicitly after that were like, nope, this is not for me, because of
Yes.
the fish component of it, which is understandable. While as I was like, I love this. And while I would not call myself an avid fly fisherwoman, I do have my own gear, and I can tie the knots, rig a rod. I can catch fish on my own in a creek or river, and I enjoy it. And it's something that even here in Los Angeles, I'm able to do, not like super frequently, but I'm able to sort of do, every couple months or so, and have met other fly fishermen mostly, if I'm being honest, who you like really enjoy going on sort of mini fly fishing trips with. The other one I've sort of gotten into recently, which has come up a lot in articles recently, is actually, I think fly fishing is one of them, or fishing in general is becoming really popular with Gen Zs and millennials, and then bird watching. I had a pair of binoculars by this very millennial brand called Knox, and they were co-hosting birding event here in LA like 6 months ago with a local bird collective. I went, and honestly, I loved how meditative it was, how present it made me feel. And then I met a couple of women on that trip that have become both birding friends and then also like non-birding friends, real LA friends too. So again, it's been sort of a community builder for me. Writing, I feel like I go like off and on with that. I'm in a little writing group. Sometimes I take writing classes. Again, like it's a favorite, sort of a form of creative expression for me. And then also hiking for me. And then I would say the other big thing is I'm a really big reader, which you are too.
Mm.
You don't. I feel like you're
So
such a big reader.
so I think I was like a very big reader,
Yeah.
like a huge reader, and then law school.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I honestly, since law school, where I did just a lot of reading for not enjoyment, it
Yeah.
kind of ruined reading for me in a
Fair
little
enough.
ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while I I do write, I don't read like I used to. I often get
Yeah.
frustrated with reading in a way that I didn't before. I think
Mm,
also, this sounds bad, but the popular novels that often get recommended to me
yeah.
are not as interesting
Fair
as
enough.
uh,
Yeah.
the recommendations would paint them out to be. So I'm often feeling unsatisfied with books. So I do read, but I read more for educational purposes. Like I'm more likely to pick up a book that is not about a topic that I'm currently obsessed with
Yeah.
versus like a fantasy novel, which used to be my go-to.
Yep. Totally.
So maybe
Yeah.
it's not that the hobby is gone, maybe it's just evolved.
Okay, fair enough. I will also say, as you were talking, I was thinking, I think the other two hobbies that it's interesting. I don't necessarily think of them as hobbies per se. I think of them more as interests, but I do think they also dictate how I sometimes spend my time on weekends, for example, is vinyl. I love
Mm.
going to record stores, going on Discogs, which is like an online marketplace to sort of see what the price of vinyl is. And I just love listening to a record while doing a crossword puzzle, which might be another hobby. I don't know. There's all these like little mini hobbies. But as we're
Oh,
talking,
yeah.
and yeah, I do think there is a distinction though between there are hobbies for me that I think are more communal, like fly fishing, bird watching, and then there are hobbies for me that are more introspective and solo, like a crossword puzzle reading. But I do think the general through line for me is that they're pretty much all offline. They're all analog, I think for me. None of mine are digital.
So it's funny because you made a distinction between communal and introspective. Well, I think of fly fishing and bird watching as like very introspective because there's a lot of just like waiting.
It's true, but I prefer, and I would actually say fly fishing to me is the perfect introvert communal hobby. And I think you can do it solo, but I love to go, like my friend Teddy, who lives here in LA, he and I will often pop up. There's a little spot in Angeles National Forest, and we'll just go for a day. And I love going with him to have sort of a partner in crime to do it with. But then once we're on the river, we kind of you can't fly fish the same spot together. That's just not how it works. So you can both be together and meet up and have lunch and like carpool, but then once you're on the river, it's a very solo, meditative, to your point, introspective experience. So I guess the way that I'm thinking about it is there are hobbies that I like to do with people that feel more shared for me, while there are other hobbies that I like to do that are more okay, I have a Friday evening, solo evening to myself. How do I want to spend that time in a way that doesn't just feel like I'm binge watching Netflix on the TV and actually feels like it's creative or energizing or like I'm learning something? Those are things like, oh, I'm going to listen to some vinyl or I'm going to do like 3 crossword puzzles from the New York Times. Like I have crossword books, which I love, but those are things that I guess any hobby you could theoretically do with someone else. But I think for me, there are hobbies that I prefer to share with other people, and then there are hobbies that I just do kind of on my own.
So it's funny because I think I do hobbies to get out of my head. Like
Interesting.
I hate being introspective because my
Mm,
mind tends to go to places that aren't so pleasant. I think hobbies are a way of just keeping my mind not thinking
mm. Yeah, fair.
or like structured thinking, I guess
Yeah.
would be more appropriate, where I can dictate where my thoughts go.
Yep. Yep.
So I think part of why I did it, there was the fish aspect of fly fishing, but part of the reason why I didn't take to fly fishing as much as you do is that there's a lot of time where your mind turns
Yeah, you're
inward.
you're alone you're alone on the water. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
was like, that's just not a positive place for my
Yeah.
mind to go.
Okay, but question, when you're hiking, like when you're
I
hiking
combine that
solo,
with another very, popular
podcast.
hobby, podcasting,
Okay.
podcast
Okay.
listening.
Okay.
So there are definitely times when I stop listening to the podcast because you're outside and there's something about enjoying, like, the wind in the leaves, the sound of the birds, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
but I would say for 95% of the time, I'm listening to a podcast
Yeah.
or an
That makes
audiobook.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. Okay, so question, why are hobbies making a comeback? And like, did they ever die?
I don't think hobbies ever died. I think people are prioritizing them more than they used to.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we got into this conversation, as you said, when we talked about the corporate work.
Yeah.
But I think people are just realizing that they're not getting what they need to be happy humans.
Yeah.
Happy humans.
Happy humans.
Happy humans out of work alone. And so they're looking for other places to find that. And hobbies are those structured
Yeah.
activities where you find joy, where
Yeah.
you find learning, where you become a happy human.
Yeah. I do wonder if the pandemic also was timing wise, just thinking about I think about fly fishing. I started fly fishing during the pandemic when it was something that I could do outside, um,
Mm,
but also do it with other people in safety. And there was also just I don't know, especially for me, because I was, single, living alone for the majority of that time. There was just so much time, right? And the things that I had historically done, going out to eat dinners or seeing friends were maybe no longer as much of an option. So figuring out how to spend my time in a way that felt joyful or just like useful to me
well, I think you're
was
hitting on
important.
something here,
Yeah.
which is just the availability of time, which
Yeah.
we were not perhaps afforded in the same way pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so once we were given that opportunity to see, oh, look, there's there's time to like do what you want. What are you going to
Yeah.
do with it?
Yeah.
It's no wonder there's a rise in people doing the things that they love to do.
Yeah. That's a good point, and I do feel like, at least for me and then what I've observed with friends in my immediate community is people are just prioritizing that kind of leisure time more than they were pre-pandemic. It's like we all kind of have this how we're all thinking about capitalism. I think just the state of the world right now at least has me reevaluating how I spend my time,
Yeah.
just like in general, and trying to put more time towards the things that feel really meaningful to me. And frankly, a lot of those things are hobby driven at
Yeah.
this
And
point.
I just want to highlight that because I think hobbies are often dismissed as non-productive or not meaningful or frivolous. And I
Yeah.
would urge us to reconsider that framing because I think that they can be very meaningful. Like even something that is considered silly by some, like knitting, I think is like very meaningful. I think it in ways connects us to the people who did it before. And I
Yeah.
think it also grounds us to meaning in how we interpret and how we gift that to others. So
Mm.
I'm struggling with my words here, but I just want to caution against dismissing hobbies as something. Oh, you do that outside of work hours, like whatever.
Yeah.
But I think hobbies can be extremely meaningful
Yeah.
and important.
Well, and I think that is the shift, right? And I feel like, in some of the things that we've cited and we'll share as part of the sort of description of this podcast episode, I feel a lot of them have alluded to this idea of hobbies as self-expression for a lot of people too, which I think is really interesting is not like you are what your hobbies are, but it's a way to, yeah, like explore, express in a way that maybe typical structures haven't always allowed us. Like, I don't know. I just think about it is really interesting to think about what adulthood is versus childhood, right? Like when we're kids, we grow up, I don't know, at least the way that we were raised, which I so appreciate. We tried so many things, right? It's
Yeah.
like one day you're a musician, another day you're an artist, then you're an athlete, then you're like, you just, it's all about exploring and play and imagination. And I do feel like we lose that as we get older and get so focused on work and career. So it's been, at least for me, such a gift to get back in touch with that side of myself. And honestly, sometimes it can be really hard, to your point where I'm like, wait, I want to spend a half day or a full day on the river with my fly rod. Is that like the best way to spend my time? And I think before it used to be like, maybe not. And now I'm like, oh, hell yes. I come back feeling, well, I come back feeling energized
No, I
often.
completely agree.
I
Yeah.
often feel like, you may not like the thinking that you do when you're sort of introspective. Sometimes it lets me like I sometimes sort out my biggest problems on the river, or like, I don't know, weird things pop into my mind that are solutions to something I've
So
been thinking about. Yeah.
I just it's not that I don't like think.
I know, yeah, I know you like Yeah. Elaine just tunes out all thoughts. Yeah.
It just look like my mind is just like a mess. So I can't have like nothing to do.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah. So
It-
anyway, I just, yeah, I get to be, there is something very childlike for me about participating in hobbies. And I will say the other thing that we haven't quite touched on yet, which we did talk on a lot around the reason that I do hobbies, is for me it's a great way to meet people too,
yes.
around like
Yeah.
shared interests. Yeah.
Yeah. So I not the great at meeting people, but am currently
You
contemplating.
to be clear, you are good at meeting people when you want to. I just,
Yeah.
not to put words in your mouth, I don't think you go out and seek people the way that I do.
No, that's true. I'm trying to get better at it. So actually another one of my habits, which is house plants. So my little hobby with house plants, I'm trying to make myself go to a plant swap in DC.
I love that. I love that.
So
God, I
eh,
love plant people. Yeah.
can I just say the planting hobby is like one of these weird hobbies that like grows on you, pardon the pun, but it's like you get one plant and you're like, "Oh, this is cute. I could take a cutting from this. I could like propagate it. Ooh, what if I had this other plant? Oh, someone's giving away a cutting. I need that cutting." It's like one of those things that like you don't intentionally go in to learn, but it
Yeah.
like creeps in.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is like the weirdest hobby you've ever heard of?
Ever heard of?
Or
Oh,
like the
Carla.
most niche hobby? Or like a recent hobby that you came across
Mm.
and you were like, ah, I didn't realize that was like a thing.
Paper mache. So
Okay.
I know it's a hobby. I've done it before.
Yeah.
I didn't realize people took it as seriously as people take it.
Yeah.
Like people make absolute masterpieces
Yep.
with paper mache.
That's really cool.
That's mine. What's
That's really
yours?
mine is, I don't know if it's like the super coolest or weirdest, but I just didn't realize it was a hobby. It was rock tumbling. Like, do you know?
Okay,
Yeah.
that I knew, but I am also on Reddit, and rock
Okay.
tumbling has a
Okay.
presence on Reddit.
I did not know it was a thing. I was watching the Apple TV show Shrinking, and there's the main character's neighbor, who I think her name is Liz, is the character's name. She's a rock tumbler, and she'll like go on hikes in LA and collect like rocks, and then a lot of the scenes she's just rock tumbling. I was like, what
Yeah.
is this? Like, what is this machine she's using? And I went down a deep rabbit hole of rock tumbling hobbyists. It was like, wow, this is not a hobby that I knew existed. But I actually, there was a piece of me that was like, should I get a rock tumbling machine? This seems really meditative, honestly. Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, "Nope, I'm good."
You're like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
So question about that. Do you think, like, the less usual hobbies, do you think they, like, started in childhood, or do you think people, like, sought those out?
I don't know. I feel like I
Like,
don't
do
know.
most of your hobbies, like, have a root in childhood?
Yeah. Yes and no. Like I didn't fly fish or bird like while I was a kid, but I do think we were outside a lot as kids. We were surrounded by nature a lot. I think things like reading and writing definitely were things that I loved as a kid and have sort of tried to return to more as an adult. I don't know. I will say for me a lot of my hobbies are about, and I don't know if it's like explicitly a link between who I was as a child or I am as an adult versus more just like who I am as Carlin and the things that I love and the things that spark for me. And of
Mhm.
course, those have evolved over time, but I do think like who I was as a child is still inherently who I am as an adult. And a big part of hobbies for me is my my journey to get back in touch with the things that I really loved as a child and have maybe sort of lost sight of. I have a friend who yesterday sent me a lovely video audio clip of her with her new piano, like learning some basic chords and singing a song. And at the end of the video, she's like, I just bought this piano. I haven't played piano since I was a kid. And I like share that because that was really resonant for me. Was I just feel like there is this movement of these people. Like she's a late 40s woman who is like, I used to play as a child and that brought me joy. I want to revisit it.
Mhm.
So I don't know. To answer your question, yes and no. I think there are some people who, like, I have a friend who's a fencer, but he grew up fencing, right, and had
Yeah.
just never stopped fencing, and it went from being something that was like such a big part of his life and now is sort of more secondary but still a hobby, like a big hobby for him. So there are people who are like doing hobbies that they've never stopped doing as a kid versus other people who are maybe revisiting things that remind them of aspects of childhood. That was a really long-winded answer. What do you think, like what is that sparking for you?
I think there is a return to childhood in some ways. Like I said, I think hobbies are very much about learning, and I think
Yeah.
childhood is all about learning.
Yeah.
Like, and there's a joy in that
And a
that
joy
I
of
think.
mastery too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But but I think that comes later. I think there's a joy from childhood in certain activities. It just being free to experiment
Yeah.
that is inherent in childhood that is not inherent in adulthood,
Yeah.
because you are expected to do the things that you have mastered already instead of exploring new things. And so I think there's a an attempt to recapture that freedom.
Yeah. And I would say I think I choose my hobbies less based on learning, though I do think that's inherently part of all of them, and more based on how they make me feel. Honestly, like do they make me feel relaxed? Do they get me outside? Do they make me feel centered? So yeah, it is just really interesting to think about why we choose hobbies and what they do for us.
And none of what you mentioned is in what you're producing for others.
Totally. Doing it truly only for myself.
Yeah.
There is something really kind of beautifully selfish about
Yeah.
hobbies too. Huh.
Yeah. It's like, even when I'm producing things, that is not the point
Yeah.
of what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's truly for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just closing the loop in terms of the broader question of why this resurgence of hobbies and what it says just about society and like younger generations in particular, I think we've touched on some of these things, right? People are craving community, people are craving time offline, people are craving more purpose and meaning, and it's easier to find that. People are maybe craving more sense of self, as we just touched on. Is there anything else that like comes to mind that we haven't talked about, or any closing thoughts on hobbydom?
I think a lot of people our age are not just experiencing that hobbydom again, but I think that there is also some conversation about making sure that the next generation also retains that.
Yeah.
I think we, in a weird way, lost it and then
Yeah.
refound it perhaps during COVID.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bigger push now to make sure that younger generations never lose it.
Yeah.
And I think that that is something worth fighting for.
Beautifully said, Elaine.
I know.
Oh
I'm a poet and I don't even know
my God. New hobby, poetry. Called it right here.
it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our conversation this week, we look forward to sharing more with you.
Follow us now so that when our next episode premieres in 2 weeks, you can be sure not to miss it. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts.
See you next time, everyone.